Success transcends cities. As one of the world's most respected business leaders, I know what it takes. Join me now as I sit down with fellow leaders and we share our insights into how you can be successful. My name is Jeffrey Hayzlett, and this is All Business.
Entrepreneurial spirit is what drives success. Starting with a dream and vision to start a new category in men's golf apparel is what formed TravisMathew. My guest today is the CEO and one of the biggest growing apparel brands today. Ryan Ellis is CEO of TravisMathew. Ryan, welcome to All Business with Jeffrey Hayzlett.
Thrilled to be here. Thanks, Jeffrey.
You know, for those watching and listening who may not have heard of TravisMathew brand, though I'm sure they'll recognize the logo, tell us a little bit about the history of the company.
Yeah, I mean, I think it started with a foundational principle. If you think about golf 15 years ago, very shiny, techy, bright, the athletic brands had really taken over. The cool thing about the athletic brands is the product performed really well. Not only did it perform in terms of moisture wicking, sweat, but it actually washed really well. You took your cotton polo, you washed it 3 times, it wrinkled, it faded, it really didn't hold up. And so we had the idea of, can we merge the two, right? Because golf apparel became a uniform, like you were playing basketball and you wore it, shiny, bright, techy, and then you took it off, put your real clothes on. And could we merge the two of on and off the course apparel with an end game in mind, thinking we always wanted to be a men's lifestyle brand, and sort of the concept worked really early. Had no clue what to do with fabrications. It was sort of learn on the fly. And then we started in 2007, 2010, we found this magical kind of cotton poly blend built out of Peru, had all the tech properties, breathed like cotton, held up really well. And we redefined performance. For the athletic brands, it's quick dry. For us, it's our guy's a traveler. Like how does it wrinkle? Does it shrink? Does it fade? Can you wash it 20 times and it holds up? And then thinking about even deeper. What is the weight? I'll give away my secrets. We keep polo weights between 140 to 160 grams, right? And so we're thinking about all these things and all these properties. And how do we take the best of poly, right, which dries quick, but isn't a natural fiber, doesn't breathe. And then cotton, which is a natural fiber, breathes, but soaks up, gets really heavy, and is really soft. And so that was sort of the formulation of that plan. And then sort of 3 years down the road, we figured out the fabric piece. And the biggest thing with TravisMathew is we've formed this aspirational brand. Think of it like Tommy Bahama, right? If you think about a lot of clothing brands, it's just clothes, right? And they tell you it's the best damn this or it's the best that. And you get it and it's great and it feels great, but there's nothing aspirational. When you put TravisMathew on, it feels like you're at the beach. It feels like with your buddies. It feels like you're on a golf trip. So we've combined incredible product with aspirational marketing.
So are those plaid pants here to stay, or are they gone with TravisMathew?
They're gone. My last name's Ellis. We actually had, I'm very embarrassed, probably in 2009, 4 shorts called the Ellis short. They were all plaid, all different colors. If you saw them today, it'd be really embarrassing. We actually sold them really well though.
So John Daly's not one of your spokespersons then?
He's not. I think we go the opposite direction. I think that's cool. Like, some people want to go with that out there caddy shack, and we wanted to really bring the class back into golf, and we call it reinventing classics, and that's taking something you've seen from the 70s or 80s and really modernizing it.
Being a former brand officer myself, I'm listening to the words you're using, and I love the word class. Bring some class back and really setting apart your own style. Was that a big part of the discussion?
It was a huge part. I mean, we always started with, we want to be disruptive, which you're going to think, well, that's counterintuitive to class, but it's not. We're going to be disruptive in the industry by shipping early instead of late, right? We're going to be disrupted by attention to detail. We're going to be disrupted by marketing. I mean, our very first shop we opened, Roger Dunn St. Anna, we put an entire VW bus inside the shop, and it was like a magnet. And that was being disruptive in our industry. But it was classy, and it brought back, that 70s sort of 80s theme. So from day one, it was, everyone that goes into golf that wants to be disruptive just goes wild. I remember seeing a catalog from a competitor, and the guy's like peeing in the bushes in the catalog. And I get that like they're doing that, but it makes no sense. You're taking the class right out of it. So how do we take this rich tradition and modernize it a bit? And that's what we're able to do.
Yeah, I like that. You know, a lot of brands, they can do that. They can use sex or they can use comedy to differentiate their brand. It's good to use class. It does set you apart. And they do that on golf courses. We know that happens from time to time. Even some of the pros. I know some of the pros, but I won't go into that. A whole different show. So I have to ask you, Ryan, I heard that you were the first hire and that you didn't even play golf at the time. Where did you start and what attracted you to this brand?
Yeah, I've been in apparel my whole career. I started in retail. I wanted to learn that side of the business, thinking I would open my own business, probably open a few stores. Got onto the wholesale side, was actually working for an action sports company, opened a retail store for them, came on the wholesale side, became a sales manager, eventually headed up product. On my bachelor party in Europe, 10-day trip, I think I was in Stockholm at the time. I get a call. It was an Australian business. They shut down the US headquarters because they were bleeding in Australia. We had a $5 million building. They sold it. So I came back to no job. Was looking at what I wanted.
You didn't even have a desk, no desk.
You know what? When you're on a 10-day bender for your bachelor party in Europe, it's like not the worst thing to come home and relax a little bit and think about what you're going to do next. And so I traveled a little bit and I met with one of the guys that had the idea for TravisMathew. And I thought I wasn't a golfer, and I thought golf clothing, I'm in fashion and apparel. I don't want to go into golf clothing. And he said, that's the point. Go look at 3 or 4 shops, and gave me a list. And I did. And I started making cold calls. And of 20 people I called, 15 said they were interested. And you know, the clothing industry, I mean, nobody's interested. They've got enough brands, right? And so I was like, wow, this is something that really could pop. And yeah, I was the first employee hired, and you know, we had a head of design and we had the head creative and me. So I'd go get the order, I'd put it in the system, I'd pack the box, I'd ship it. And so it's been a wild ride going from that to 15 years later being CEO. And I think I've had 12 titles in the 15 years I've been here. Hopefully this one sticks for a long time, but you know, you got to constantly evolve. I'm not the same manager. I'm not the same performer I was 15 years ago. I used to really just put my head down at work. I'd be here till midnight if I could, right? I'd get in at 8. I wasn't efficient. I'd be here till midnight, but hard work overcame a lot and a little bit of intelligence, I hope. And now it's different. You got to find balance in your life. I've got 2 kids, 11 and 9, and I'm still a little crazy. I wake up at 3 in the morning and get in here at 4 and get 5 hours of work in before anyone gets in, just to make sure I can get home by 5. And I think I try to teach our employees, don't do that. That's maybe extreme, but find that balance for yourself. Work-life balance is difficult in a company in hyper growth. So you're probably not going to get it. You do need to get balanced, so otherwise your brain doesn't work properly.
Yeah, you know, listening to you and the transition that you make, I have a little rule that I do every single day. I either automate, eliminate, or delegate tasks that come across. Are you doing that in your job? But I also get the sense you're one of those guys. They're bringing you to the new line, the new polo. You're going through it. You're touching it, feeling it. You're putting it on, that kind of stuff. You're walking around with it. Are you that kind of CEO?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I would take it a step further. I'm probably working on building it before they even hand it to me. I still wear test every single fabric we have. We have a fabric library, probably 1,000 fabrics. I probably have a meeting this afternoon to wear test, and we probably get about 15 a week. So every single piece we get, I test it, I wash it 5 times. We compare the results to our company washing it and testing it, our team washing and testing it. So yeah, I'm very hands-on, and I try to find that balance between doing what you said and that creative piece. I try to keep an hour, 2 hours in the morning to be creative, clear my mind, and think about the future of the company, where we're going.
How about supply chain? I'm kind of curious, from the idea of, let's just say, that shirt that you're wearing right there, to the time it comes to market, how long does it take? And are you seeing some supply chain issues that are a problem for you?
Yeah, we've seen some massive supply chain issues. I mean, one thing we did that was really interesting is we had an April delivery of 2020. And when the pandemic hit, everything closed. I decided to pivot and move that to January. The end consumer had never seen it. It fit in really well for that January delivery. So when we did that, we actually avoided a lot of supply chain issues that a lot of people had, because what happened was everyone had to start buying in June and July. Well, the buyers weren't prepared, right? They're just coming back. Stores are opening. They're not giving you pre-books. So you'd have to buy blind. So we didn't have to buy that. And I actually bought March and July. So we got ahead of the curve. So for 21, we were doing great. But for 22, we were planning 40, 50% growth, and we ended up growing 80%. So that hyper growth caused a massive supply chain issue, capacity issues, things like that. Our lead times, you're seeing 30 to 60 days longer than typical. So a typical garment, 120 to 150 days, you're seeing 180 to 210. And On some dress shirts like you're wearing, I've seen lead times as high as 250 days. So it's pretty incredible. So you've got to build an incredible go-to-market strategy. You have to have the supply chain buttoned up, and you have to have incredible forecasting in a time that's really difficult to forecast.
Well, at least mine's custom made, but that's okay. We'll go from there.
That takes even longer.
It does. But I get them soon. Let's talk about, how have you seen the brand grow and develop over the years? I mean, you've been there since the beginning. It's not the same as it was when you first started, by all means. Now you're publicly traded, hundreds of millions of dollars, growing at a high rate. I mean, it wasn't like that early. I mean, you had some of that growth, but how have you seen the brand grow and develop over the years?
No, it's been really cool because we've not been afraid of evolution, right? We haven't stuck to, this is who we are from day one, this is who we'll be in day 15. The core principles are there, but then you sort of evolve and navigate. And, you know, we went from this really small, tight-knit group, fun brand, and kind of we're having a good time working our butt off. And you think about what's important, and what's important is revenue, profit, and having fun and having a great brand, right? And then we've evolved into this business that's become a lot bigger. And then you start thinking about, well, who are we today? Well, you know, we give back. You know, we've donated $2.2 million over the last 2 years to charter schools, to the Special Olympics, to some incredible causes. And we really can make an impact on not only our people, but the environment around us. You know, in a couple of years here, we'll probably be the biggest company in Huntington Beach with over 1,000 employees. And you think about the impact we can make there. And so it changes your thought process as a brand of going from let's be this really cool brand to like, we can make an impact on people. We've got huge sustainability initiatives that our end consumer hasn't shown to us it's that important, but I think it will be for them. And it's the right thing to do at the end of the day. And so making a lot of decisions like that, while also going, we went from this cool small brand to a mid-sized to big brand, and we got to think bigger. We've had these incredible organic relationships with our ambassadors, guys like Chris Pratt and Jimmy Garoppolo. And it's like, why aren't we utilizing them better for their brand and for ours? Can't we elevate both of our brands? And so we've taken on deals, not like Nike would. We're not paying guys $20 million, but we are paying them, and we're giving them deals that are mutually beneficial to grow both of our brands. So you got to start thinking bigger and go, we're not small anymore. Organic is cool, scene wearing is cool, but let's make something real out of this.
I tell you, I always say that the brand is rooted, you know, where it needs to come from and where it was its core, and that is golf for you. But your customers don't all play golf, do they, Ryan? And you have a tagline that says, we're having a party and you're invited. Where does that come from?
Okay, I'll embarrass myself with my retail career here a little bit. So when I came out of college, I couldn't get a job. I didn't have any experience. I played basketball in college. I'd never worked. And I had a buddy who was a district manager for Abercrombie & Fitch. He said, they'll hire you. You're like a good looking guy. They'll just hire you on the spot. And I interviewed him. Within 2 minutes, they're like, you're hired, right? And so it was really entrepreneurial. They just give you a store and go, have at it, basically. You have almost no management. But one thing that they do is they have this very, exclusive environment where we're having a party and you're not invited. And so I learned there, that's not how I want to be, right? Like, we're not going to be the red carpet, high-end New York. You wish you could be here, but you can't afford it. You can't be here. And I really wanted to be inclusive from day one. So we created that tagline, we're having a party and you're invited. And the idea is, I call the brand 18 to 80. Now that's an exaggeration, but it's so inclusive. My dad can wear it. He doesn't wear it like this, and he actually looks better in it. And yet we can get a 20-year-old consumer as well. So, for me, we're having a party, you're invited is like, let's bring everyone along for the ride. I think we have a unique opportunity at TravisMathew, like almost nobody else. I think this can be one of the biggest sportswear brands in the US and internationally.
I'd love to hear you talk about being inclusive. In fact, I broke that story about Abercrombie and its CEO years ago when I had my own show on Bloomberg. In fact, there's a new documentary out about Abercrombie not being inclusive and about the things that they did. And I've got a big cameo or a big spot in that where I talk and do some reporting. So it's kind of interesting. You bring that around. At least don't get that private plane like he had. And he had two people dressed in their clothing. They had to look identical and they had to spritz cologne in the plane 30 seconds before him arriving. There was a manual on that. Anyway, never be like that. It sounds like you got a good head on your shoulders. So that's great. So I heard it said it's so important to remind people where the brand started and for them to be on the journey as to where the brand is going. How are you ensuring that your team is on that journey with you? You were there since the beginning. You've been drinking the Kool-Aid since day one. You've been wearing the shirt since day one. How are you getting that brand message through to your team?
Well, we're lucky. We actually have a few people that have been with the brand for quite a bit of time. Our head of marketing has actually been with the brand for 11 years. So pretty close to the beginning. Our VP of design he was hired at the exact same time I was. And so we've got some core people that have been there from the beginning. And then we're matching that with skilled sort of practitioners that have the science where we have the art. And so I think what the key to that is, the people that have the art have to be open-minded, right? Because the people with the skills are bringing those skills. You got to allow them to use those skills, right? And so we've got to give up a little bit, which is hard to do. When you've owned the brand for this long, it's hard to sort of give up that control, but you have to embrace that. And so that's the message. The message is, let's all hold hands together on this journey, and let's all get better and learn from each other. And that's what we're doing here.
You mentioned a little bit that you're giving away some money. At the C-Suite Network, we work with hero leaders where people, community, and giving back are more important than profits. In fact, I wrote a book talking about putting people above profits. And I've heard you say that people come first and profits will follow. So how are you leading with a people first philosophy?
Well, I think the first thing I tell our team is, I would rather miss all of our goals and have our people be happy and fulfilled than make our goals and have people be miserable. So that's the foundation. And I truly mean that. And yet I'm so competitive, we're never going to miss our goals. So I don't even worry about that. So I really focus on the people piece and say, okay, our tagline here is take extreme ownership in winning together. And what that means is, again, the old philosophy of profits, of fun and brand are still important. But we've got this other piece of engagement. How do we engage our people consistently? How do we recognize and reward them? And so, I send a weekly email or video to the team every single week that highlights something that somebody did great. Let's say accounting closed in 2 days, and we've been previously closing in 5 days. Nobody really talks about that, right? But really lights up the accounting team when we tell the whole company that's a big accomplishment. They worked really hard to do that, and probably worked 48 hours straight. So we need to know that. We need to congratulate them. So to me, it's that constant recognition and then just visibility, like the idea that we'll keep communicating. That's what people want. We didn't communicate a lot 4 or 5 years ago, and the employees would stick on every word we said. And you can go, well, this world's so PC and it's anything I say, they hold on. And yet over the past 3 years, I've communicated consistently every week, tons of company calls, and they don't stick on any word. They appreciate the candor. And so they forgive that I'm not going to say everything perfectly every time, but they know where my heart's coming from.
That's all. How do you balance that with your board or with the shareholders? You got shareholders who are like looking at the bottom line and looking at the top line every single minute. So how do you balance that with them? Well,
I think, the shareholders care. I think they see where the world's going and what's important. If you want to recruit top talent, right? You're going to need to be like that. You're going to need to evolve. And so I think that's been a big shift the last 5 years. Is I think we have an incredible board, and they really care, and they care about the initiatives we have, and they want our people to be happy, and they want to go on places like Glassdoor and see positive reviews, and they want to be moving the right direction. So to answer that really though, you got to hit your numbers, right? And we hit our numbers. So we're other than 2020, which was a devastating year for us, we're 14 for 14. So we're going to continue to hit our numbers, and I think that engagement increases those numbers as well naturally.
Yeah, and a great example, I've said in my book, The Hero Factor, if you put people above profits, focus in on your values, you'll succeed in every single measurement that you have. So how are you measuring success? How do you look at success?
Well, I think on the people side, it's difficult. We're launching a lot of communication tools. We just launched Workplace, which is a forum similar to Facebook. You're probably familiar with it, where we get constant communication. We do a company survey that kind of tells us really year over year, how did we improve? How did we perform? And then we do a lot of customer surveying as well to understand like what they're thinking about our brand, competitor data and analysis. Are we gaining market share? For me right now, it's less about revenue, more about market share. We've got best in class categories. And so, how do we continue to gain market share when our competitors are spending a lot more than we are on digital advertising, right? There are a lot of competitors spend and just keep reinvesting. We're building a really profitable business and a really responsible business. Not that they're not being responsible, it's just a different business model. And so for us, how do we gain market share even though we're spending less? We talked about 25% of sales going to marketing. I mean, we're sitting under 10% for sure. And so, we're reinvesting in wholesale channels, which a lot of people aren't doing, but we're dominating. We have the number one men's better sportswear brand with Nordstrom. and at the same time dominating the golf space as well. And so, our measurement of success is sell-through through our best accounts. It's customer experience, and it's how our people are feeling, and they let us know.
Fantastic. I have to ask you this other question, and more about you. Look, you started at the bottom, worked your way up to the top. How are you learning the things you need to do as a CEO? And I'm not asking that you're a young guy, so I hope you don't mind me asking a question. And I'm not trying to be condescending, but it's a lot of responsibility, a lot of things. How are you learning? What are you getting coaching? Are you having anybody help you? I'm just kind of curious how you're doing that.
No, it's funny. I don't want to say I've resisted coaching, but I've gotten this far doing it myself. And so, I take a lot of pride in that. And so I try to, when I say do it myself, I'm not alone in this. Obviously I'm doing what a lot of people are doing. I'm listening to a lot of podcasts. I'm Gary Vee, somebody I just love. I love his positivity with practicality. It just resonates so well with me. But what I try to do is listen to everybody and just think about one or two things I can take. And how do I make it my own? And then building that up. And pretty soon you've got a pretty big stable there. And I do have some great mentors. Bob McKnight, who's the founder of Quicksilver, who's right behind us in the building behind us, has been a great mentor and taught us a lot of the things. Really, the things you learn from people like that is what not to do. Here's some of the failures. And obviously I could probably teach a lot of what not to do as well now. But yeah, I've been fortunate enough to sort of do it myself. And I've had an entrepreneurial mindset. I came from a very hardworking background, played basketball in college and got pushed really hard, and it just never stopped. My dad's an entrepreneur, had his own business. I could have easily jumped in that, but wanted to carve my own path and be competitive. And my company's bigger than his now.
Fantastic. Well, that's good. That's a good Thanksgiving conversation. Hey, Dad, how's your bottom line? How's your top line? That's nothing good. But you know what? I know I know if he's like my son, he's proud of you and glad to have it. So, hey, with a minute left, what's next for TravisMathew and for you, Ryan?
Yeah, what's next is women's. We went 15 years without women's, and 25% of our direct consumer customers women's. It's an astounding number for a men's only brand. And so she's spoken to us, and we have a really good feel for where that's going. And I think not only is it going to increase our sales in women's, but she's buying for him. So it's an increase. As guys, we go and shop and we get it for ourselves when we leave. We don't even think about our woman, our wife, our girlfriend, they shop for us too. So that's what's next. Women's is going to be an incredible opportunity for us. What's next for me is constant evolution. Every 3 to 4 years, I need to evolve with the business. So we've got some great partners here with our CFO, with our head of marketing, and it's how do we take that next step and how do we keep building something that our customer really speaks to?
Well, fantastic. It's been a pleasure to have you. And of course, expanding into the women's market, that doubles the market, folks, right there. There are more women than men. It's a smart move to make. And I knew that back in my old days at Kodak, and I know that in my household too. So Ryan Ellis, the CEO of TravisMathew, he's joined us today right here on All Business with Jeffrey Hayzlett. It's been a pleasure having all of you tune in with us, and we'll see you next week. Hey, at the end of every show, I like to talk about what I learned right here on All Business. And my big reminder was value. You heard Ryan talk about doing what was right and making sure he was working with his people. I find that brands everywhere are struggling to keep great talent. And great businesses learn that values are at the core. People want to come and work with businesses that have got great values. So in my book, The Hero Factor, I write about putting people above profits, and it leads to greater profitability, greater sales, employees who are happier, customers who want to do business with them, and vendors that want to rush and help you. And of course, you're recognized by not only your industry, but your community as well. And that's what I was reminded about right here on All Business with Jeffrey Hayzlett on C-Suite Radio and C-Suite TV.
Hi everybody and welcome to Bestseller TV. I'm Taryn Winterbrill. We're here with Lou Diamond. He's the author of Master the Art of Connecting. It's wonderful to have you with us.
Thanks for having me here today, Taryn.
Congratulations on the book. It's your first one.
Oh, thank you.
Very good stuff. Something struck me from the beginning, Lou. reading along, and you said, while I had a career in sales that had been lucrative at times, I wasn't satisfied that I was connecting all of my dots. And it got me thinking, why is, being in a lucrative career, why is the sale not enough? Why was connecting the dots so important?
When you've had a successful career, and I worked on Wall Street for a while, and the environment was pretty choppy in the middle. 2007, 2008 obviously was a tough piece. Interestingly, in what I did in my work, I was actually very, very busy and did very, very well in the beginning part. But meanwhile, things were changing around me, the environment, the rules, the regulations. So doing the work I was doing, it was not a fun place to be. In addition, I was helping to close some business and do some very big trades, but it wasn't really satisfying me. And I felt like I actually wasn't really connecting either with the customers I was doing business with or really with myself. And part of the thing that I wanted to do was to do just more than what that space was. I felt that there was something much bigger that I could actually be contributing not only to myself, but to the world. And what I actually started to do when I was trying to figure this out was I actually worked with a business coach. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up.
Right.
And in working with that coach, I was fascinated by what she was doing. And that actually led me down a path towards wanting to become a coach, where I got certified to do so. And this was all while I was working on Wall Street. And along the way, I started to realize that the gift that I had in helping people to draw out how they can connect with people was something that required coaching to do, and my natural talent of connecting with people. And that sort of led me out of that to do something much more valuable, which was to really help people increase their business, improve who they are, and actually grow their own worlds in doing so.
For successful companies, though, you felt like there was so much more to attain despite getting the sale, making the deal. You felt that there was so much more that should be a part of it?
Yeah, when you think of a sale, I always think of, that the sale is too, it shortchanges truly what salespeople do. If you're just there and you go to a CVS and you want to go buy, something off the counter there, you have a relationship with the person at the counter, but you're not having a deep, meaningful relationship with this person. And that connection is just a simple transaction, and that's really what the sale is. Unfortunately, we haven't had great vocabulary in business to define how people transact with one another and establishing long-standing relationships with people. So a sale was just that point of transaction. It wasn't understanding what the business was about, helping to develop a strategy with that client. Look out for that client's particular needs so that when you connect with that client, you're doing more than just one sale. You're setting up for a series of sales. You're setting up for a long-standing relationship with that client that's going to be way more profitable, way more valuable. And in the process, you're learning all about your client and their business, and they're learning a ton about you.
Right.
So you're both gaining and giving to one another.
So Lou, just to play devil's advocate for a moment, indulge me, what do you say to the CEO or the CMO who says, Lou, we're doing just fine. Our sales are, out of control. We don't have to connect because, our numbers speak for themselves. How do you convince them that there's really so much more to attain, so to speak?
I think they're probably being short-sighted in the sense that they really are connecting to the clients that they want to.
Okay.
And maybe they're just not familiar with how they're doing it. I love to say that when I work with people, I work with the most amazing people and make them more amazing. And
that's a good way of putting it, right?
There's always
room to be more amazing.
Everyone can always improve, but I also think that people can also work on how they can connect better. If they're making just sales with people, just think of the potential if they really did understand what their customers were. Maybe they could fine-tune not only the number of sales that they're doing, but the type of sales they're doing. Maybe they can make more profitable transactions for their company. Maybe more importantly, they could start to get to know the best customers that they're going to have that will not just be for the short term, but will set them up for success for the long term.
Okay, so you talk in the book a little bit about networking versus connecting. How do you make that transition?
I like to think about when you go to one of these conferences and, I've increased my network tremendously. Or if you went on LinkedIn and you say, I've got 2,000 LinkedIn contacts in my network.
Who doesn't?
Right, exactly, right? So a network is basically kind of the people that you know. These are contacts that you know. I always think of, if you remember the movie Singles a long time ago, where some guy goes to a party and he's like, I've collected 51 numbers on my phone. And the response to the guy is, he goes, these are 51 numbers of people you're never going to know, you're never going to reach, and they're not going to know who you are.
Right.
That's no different than getting all those business cards and increasing your network. But when you make a connection, different from networking, connecting and networking, when you connect with someone, you can deal with that, less is more mentality. You're focused on really working with somebody that you're going to establish a much more powerful relationship with that probably will be more profitable than all of those networks of contacts that you have. So whenever I tell people they're going to increase their network, yes, you're trying to meet more people, but what you're really striving for is to make strong, valuable connections. And that's the difference between the two.
And there are people, many people who are okay with the networking. It's taking that next step and getting to the next finish line of connecting and making that relationship spark, so to speak. So you talk a little bit in the book about, or actually a lot in the book about this idea of a connecting core.
Right.
Is that the trick? Is that the core of the core?
So I like to think of it this way. If you think about athletes, and we were talking earlier about all the different competitive athletes out there, there's some that are natural and they go out there and whether they practiced or not, they might be better than anybody else. Yet we know that the best of that group, when they do train and when they get in shape and when they're physically fit, and when it comes to physically fit, they're strengthening their physical core of their game. And they're working on that skill. They become literally the best of what they can do. When it comes to connecting, that's exactly true as well. We like to think of it that maybe there are certain people who are more natural to go connect to people than others. But if you actually work on the way that you connect to people and improve in strengthening your connecting core and these core muscles on the way you can do it, the abilities of how you can really establish strong relationships quickly, and it raises the bar for that type of relationship. So when you think about the connecting core, it's at the essence of how master connectors actually are able to be successful.
And there's a portion of the book where you talk about being ready to connect.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say, though, starting from square one, that person has to be ready? You have to want to connect.
Yeah. If we go back to when you want to go to the gym and get in shape, right? It's that first thing, like I want to feel good, I want to look good, and I know that that personal trainer might tell you got to strengthen your core. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing that I end up coaching a lot of the leaders I work with and having them understand exactly what they want to do. Do they want to grow their business? Do they want to extend how they connect with their customers, grow the existing relationships and the sales they have? And in some instances, it might mean going out and making new connections that they've never had before. They have to want to be willing to do that and to either help their own business, to help themselves personally in their own personal lives, and actually in the way that they're facing off as the way they want to represent themselves in the world. That's actually the level that you have to ask yourself, am I ready to connect?
Yeah, you have to. It's just like going to the gym, to use your analogy. You have to be ready to put the work in. You have to be ready to work out this core. We'll get to that connecting core in a moment, but something at the beginning of the book also that struck me, Lou, which I loved, is you have a very unique way that you view people in the world. And I think you did it to me. You said as soon as you walk in, you put them in let me just get this right, a bubble type of graphic organizer. Did I say that right?
Yeah, it's as best as we can describe what it is. So when I meet people, and if I just saw someone running down the street, they would look like a regular person. Mm-hmm. But once I actually attempt to try to get to know this person, I actually see them as if there's a bubble around them. The way to think of it is when you see someone that's almost larger than life, that everyone is drawn to, and everyone when they walk in, it's not that they're the life of the party. There's something about them that's almost magnetic that pulls people to them. Take that image to another level. Whenever I see anybody, I'm looking at that person visually. It's as if there's a globe around them, and the different clouds that surround them are all the different assets that make up who they are from how I know them, or as I start to get to connect with them, what are these things that make them up? It might be what school they went to, where they're from, what they like, where their hometown is, the things that they do. It could be their profession. And I seem to be a very visual person. I have lots of brands and logos and images that'll come up. If this is someone that I haven't seen in a long time, I might have seen them on Facebook and seen their family images, and these images almost will circle around them like assets in their own little globe in their world. The difference, though, is that when I'm looking at a person like this, I'm actually looking at their world and saying, how can I make their world bigger? How can I make their world better? Who do I need to connect them to improve their situation? That's how I view the world. And I'm always trying to look at someone's sort of their orb, if you would, in their world and figure out how I can add to that.
Why discuss, why write about, why take the time to discuss this idea?
There actually were two reasons why I wrote the book. The first was I actually had a client that I was working with who came to me and couldn't get over the way that I view the world in this bubble way and thought that I needed to share that with everybody. And the other side of it was that I've spoken to lots of people, even in that example you're talking about, to a CEO who says, well, I'm doing plenty of sales, why do I need to connect? There's a lot of people that don't appreciate the power of truly great connections and how not only that helps to grow your business, it helps to grow you as an individual, help to grow your team. from a company perspective, connecting it to actually growing the brand of your company. So people understanding the value of how important it is to connect, that was a message that I wanted to get out to people and understand that that's something that they should focus on.
And the target audience, Lou, would you say, is this for the individual? Is it for the company? Both?
It started out mostly for leaders and top performers. And interestingly, as I've written it, and lots of people in different walks of life and business have found it to be very valuable in their line of work. And individuals from their personal perspective and how they're handling their personal lives, their relationships, their friendships, dealing with family members, there's components of that that are great. So it turns out it can go to anybody. And that's actually kind of nice that we're able to carry those two ideas over.
So I'm just curious, how do you use the tenets in this book in your everyday life? What do you do now? You said you were on Wall Street. You mentioned you're a coach. You speak.
So I run a company called Thrive. And as I said, I work with the most amazing people and make them even better. And we will help the leaders of small companies maybe come up with their vision and how to better connect to potential investors or to potential new clients. Mid-sized companies to work with their sales initiative and how they can better connect with new customers and to close more business. And I do a lot of speaking and to larger companies and other organizations, really to help them grow. I'd say I work mostly with the C-suite executives and helping them improve who they are. And connecting is just one of the components that I do, from having years of consulting and sales from all these big companies, being able to take a lifelong lesson of learning of how companies actually work and how to best connect is really, I guess, where I start everything off with, and helping people kind of draw that out of them to help them grow.
Right. So we mentioned the connecting core, and there are these muscles related to flexing that core. But what about the people out there that are introverts? They're not good in social situations. They're great workers, but this idea of networking, let alone connecting, scares them.
Yeah.
How do you break through that?
It becomes the bigger challenge is, look, there are some people, like we said, who are more akin to actually going out and want to connect with people. And then there are those that are definitely a little bit more reserved. And one of the components of the connecting core is having a fearless mindset. And a lot of what it is some of those people who are more introverts is they don't really want to go out there because it's out of their comfort zone, and that is difficult. But just in the spirit of growing yourself, even if it's just to increase your small world, to get out there, whether it's to get a new job, to look into new opportunities, it might even be in some cases to find other partners or other people to do business with. This is a leap that you have to do. You're going to have to connect to people at some form or fashion. You can't just stay inside all the time. It becomes more challenging. However, it's coachable. And understanding what those things are is really the key. If you face these fears and move through it, and through some of the other muscles that you go through, the other one that I could address right now is being authentic. And even if you are naturally introverted, other introverts actually like that about people, and people appreciate them for that part. You can still make a connection that way. You might not be that person that has that stereotypical view of, oh, that's the guy that handles sales or represents the company. That doesn't matter. You can still connect one-on-one or one on a few and still have just as powerful an impact in making that connection.
Yeah, I like it because when you talk about flexing these muscles, the main muscles of the connecting core, it's really appealing to all types of people and how sort of everybody can do this, but you have to put the work in.
Yep.
You have to be ready, be willing to dive in. There is an anecdote in the book, Lou, that I enjoyed when you talk about the bubble type of graphic organizer, and you talk about this moment in an airport.
Yep.
It was a great sort of setup for the genesis of the book.
So it actually was a story where I was actually in a plane, and I was actually heading to a conference, and there were two people that I was trying to introduce, and they didn't know one another, and they literally were sitting as far away as you are from I am, and I was delayed, and this was before the age of cell phones or any type of ways of getting a communication to them. So there they were waiting to connect, two absolutely unbelievable, powerful individuals in their own fields, and they didn't know one another. And it never occurred to them to start making conversation. And we always joke about the fact, what would have happened if I didn't eventually get there? I turned out to be 30 minutes late, and both of them were just sitting there waiting.
In the airport?
This was on the airport at a restaurant not too far from the airport.
Right.
I eventually come in and landed and couldn't believe that the two of them were sitting next to each other, and they never bothered to start to break the ice to have a conversation, something that I naturally would have that I do as a connector. Mm-hmm. And what was so unbelievable was after we connected and all three of us got together, I had great relationships with both these people. They have now had a business relationship for over 10 years.
Wow.
From really establishing it, because the three of us got together in what the book highlights as the gold zone. It's the area where great connections and great opportunities take place, putting those master connectors together, if you would, in that Venn diagram across the three of us.
Right, I was about to ask you what the gold zone is, and there's so many it's just little nuggets that are just really important in terms of this connecting core and flexing those muscles. You talk about your super why.
Yep.
What does that mean? Why is it super?
The super why, as I told you before, look, I was put on this planet to work with the most amazing people and make them more amazing. That's living and breathing my why every single day. Waking up to it, knowing that's why I'm here on this planet, right? I was not connecting the dots when I worked on Wall Street and recognized I needed to be in a better forum to really work with great people to do this, just outside of the realm. And that's what I did. So I took the leap to go do that, and I am working with incredible companies at all different levels in all different industries to really help them grow. And I'm living and breathing my super why every day, and I want other people to do that too.
Can you mention sort of any real life instances of this idea of mastering the art of connecting that we can all relate to?
You know, I think it's easy to take certain examples of what master connectors look like. A lot of people think of great agents who help bring great talent to different companies, or people hire people when you think of great headhunters. One of the things I highlight in the book talks about what went on in Silicon Valley with the creation of Jim Clark, Mark Andreessen, and John Doerr from a VC, a very successful founder, man in Silicon Valley, and Jim Clark, and Mark Andreessen, the founder of Netscape. And that's actually how Netscape came to be, the three of them getting together in that space of the gold zone. It happened incredibly fast from all their great connections and relations together. But those strong connections have yielded so much more from that because they each have fed off one another. Mark Andreessen now has his own venture capital fund that he helps invest in. And there's been so many other businesses from having connections with these people,
Right.
then bringing those together. I love that example because it spawned so much of the successful companies that come from that area.
Yeah, so it's a lot about synergy. And just to mention the airport example, do you ever think if you do mention if you hadn't, let's say your plane never, what if it was delayed and they left, what could have been? You said they've been working together for 10 years now.
They've had a relationship for 10 years, and
Yeah.
it's not only 10 years, and it's not all the money that they've made together.
Right.
It's how much they've grown together as a relationship. They themselves have become great connectors, not only to themselves, but also to the clients that they've both represented
Yeah.
on both sides. They've been references for one another. They've helped others at each company work for each other's company, all from that one strong connection
From that one
they have.
connection, right? It's like what they learned from the action of their connecting, how they've then applied that to the rest of their lives, which is terrific.
It seems silly, but from what I said in the beginning is that if you really help people understand the power of connecting, you're changing the world.
Yeah.
And you're helping other people connect to other people there. And that's where we start.
Well, Lou, I just want to say thank you because you make the art of connecting very easy. It's very user-friendly. It's just a terrific guide for anyone who's scared or kind of petrified of the art of networking, connecting. And it's very applicable to real life in addition to business life. So bravo, it's a great read.
Hey, thanks. And thanks for having me today.
Thanks for coming. And if you'd like more information on the book, just go to our website. It's c-suitebookclub.com. That's c-suitebookclub.com. I'm Taryn Winterbrill. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time right here on Bestseller TV.
Welcome to C-Suite TV Insights. I'm Greg Greenberg. Sometimes in business, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Joining me to talk about how a super connector can help supercharge your business is entertainment and technology influencer and strategist Kelly Richards. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you, Greg. Great to be here.
So what is a super connector and who should be using one?
Well, a super connector is somebody who has a broad and deep network of influencers and decision makers, typically out of one or multiple industries. People that can benefit from using one are anyone from emerging startups that need an accelerated path to get to deal making, all the way to people at the top who have a desire to connect with influencers and just don't seem to have access to those people.
And how did you develop your network?
I was Apple's original head of music and entertainment, and I was privileged to have Steve Jobs as my personal mentor. And both of those things allowed me to build out a robust network from a very young age that just keeps extending because all those people remain in the network and they just keep growing and becoming ever more influential. So it goes on from there.
And how do you weave your clients into your network so they can monetize their ideas and grow their revenue?
Well, whatever client I'm working with, an individual or a company, we're working on their strategy and what pieces and what relationships do they need to accelerate where they're headed. And then at my discretion, I decide, there might be a handful of people in my network or more that are directly relevant to them to create deal making between them, revenues, buzz, momentum, whatever. And then I go ahead and create those intros.
And you don't just introduce the two parties and get out of the way. You advise on deals as well, correct?
Absolutely, I have to, because at the core I'm a strategist. That's how I add value, first and foremost. But also, it's my job to protect the relationships in the network. So I have to believe that there's value and a win being created between both parties, or I won't make the intro.
So there's a lot of overachieving people in your web.
Yes.
So what are they looking for when they come to you?
When I work with high achievers, it's typically about helping them get out of their own way, helping them see things they can't for themselves, out-of-the-box thinking, fresh ideas, and then, helping them reinvent the next phase of their work or their life, transforming the quality of where they're headed next.
But these are highly successful people. Do they realize they need a coach?
Sometimes they do. Sometimes they're referred to me by others who think they might benefit from having a coach. But I don't call it a coach, I call it a trusted advisor because it's a combination of everything we discussed in addition to access to that network that could really change the game for them.
And then finally, what's the best way for a client to approach you as one, a super connector, and two, a trusted advisor?
Well, mostly as a consultant working with companies, people would go to allaccessgroup.com, which is my company for that side of my work. When I work with individual high achievers, as a trusted advisor, they should go to my other website, kellyrichards.com, and that's Kelly with an I, because that's the site dedicated to my work in that context. Note that in both cases, they get the Super Connector contribution.
Well, that's super. Thanks a lot for coming on and talking
My
about
pleasure,
it.
Greg. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for watching C-Suite TV Insights. I'm Greg Greenberg.